Welcome to High Infidelity, the best cheating videos on YouTube. If you enjoy this content, remember to subscribe and turn on notifications. Now let's get into the video.
Cheating wife gets wiped out in divorce. I discovered my closest friend's wife's hidden social media account. She was having an affair with one of our other acquaintances. I informed a buddy about it. He just kind of shut off. A few weeks later, he instructed me not to tell anybody that I knew she was cheating or that I was aware of the account. Every now and again, I'd ask him how the two of them were doing. Always excellent. They seemed to be a happy pair every time I saw them together. He admitted 9 months later that he had lost all they had due to a gambling addiction. They both had paid off automobiles a year prior. He'd sold them and rented new vehicles. He lost the money he gained from selling them. Their savings and 401k plans were essentially depleted. All of them lost on gambling. They resided in a leased condo. They had hardly no assets. She filed for divorce right away. They didn't have any children and had comparable wages. The divorce was concluded without his having to pay alimony. Her infidelity was never brought up. She took all of the furnishings as well as the pots and pans. He kept his gold coin stash hidden. I'm not sure, but I'm betting it's worth at least $200,000. Story 2. I, 34 male, was cheated on and lied to by my wife, 34 female, of 3 years. When should I call it quits? We have been married for around 4.5 years. The infidelity happened around 1.5 years ago, but additional events and facts along the road have pushed me to desire to leave the marriage. Is this the best choice I can make? Here's how the story unfolded. About 1.5 years ago, my wife and I had a week-long excursion to the West Coast. I felt something was awry when she returned from her vacation. I inquired if there was anything more she needed to tell me, but she assured me that nothing out of the norm had occurred. I was still dubious a few weeks later and inquired about the trip again. Details, as well as contradictions, started to emerge. I learnt that she had met someone at a club from literally 5 distinct versions of her narrative. Each version had one or more untruths. They kissed and danced a few times. They met again the following night, and the same thing occurred. It didn't go any further since she was around coworkers, who didn't witness them kiss but would have noticed if they disappeared together. Note, this is the only element of the narrative that I trust since I independently verified it. My wife went so far as to berate, intimidate, and embarrass me when I asked questions about the event during this time period, in addition to her unwillingness to tell me what occurred and her propensity to lie about it to cover up the truth. For example, she stated it was weird, therefore I wanted to know what occurred. She grew enraged and called me crazy. This was very painful and continues to be so to this day. Everyone makes errors. And it might be tough to acknowledge our faults at times. In my own life, I've done some incredibly stupid things and even gone so far as to lie to cover it up. Despite my heartbreak at learning that my wife had chosen to have a weekend liaison with another man, I decided to give her another opportunity. We had a fantastic life together, a lovely kid, and I was certain that we could work things out. She removed any traces of this individual from our life, unfriended him on Facebook, and we started marriage therapy right away. Things were difficult at first, but after approximately a month, she had began to regain my trust. I, too, started to feel more like myself after a while. Infidelity, no matter how minor, with your mind big time. I forgiven her and excused her transgressions as being caught up in the moment. Despite the progress we'd made and the forgiveness I'd provided, I was still dubious of what had transpired. From my opinion, there were still contradictions in her account. And I just had a feeling. About 30 days into therapy, just as I was getting back on my feet, she yanked the rug out from under me again by finally acknowledging there was more to tell. She informed me that after returning from her business trip, she contacted the individual she had met. They kept their amorous connection going long distance, through text messaging, and so on. There was over the phone. They sent each other NSFW photos. Furthermore, she had still not erased his contact information and had even gone so far as to contact him again while we were in counseling. I was heartbroken. I felt completely deceived. Almost everything had slipped through my fingers. I couldn't focus at work. I wasn't able to spend time with my friends or do the activities I usually like. I wasn't able to spend much quality time with our child since much of my time at home was spent bickering with or ignoring my wife. I started weeping every day. Hourly. I was experiencing shortness of breath, anxiety, and nonsensical ideas. At times, I felt as if I were suffering a heart attack, which I later found is a medical condition known as broken heart syndrome. Look it up. In essence, I had PTSD caused by adultery. And it persisted for many weeks. Weeks stretched into months, and months turned into years. My hair began to fall out. I became ill. It was dreadful. I didn't want to give up once again. For better or worse, I'm not one to give up quickly. I gave careful thought to our daughter's future. At the very least, I wanted to resolve the situation for her sake. We kept on with the treatment. We worked through our disagreements, my emotions of betrayal over the affair, and our trust difficulties. It took more than a year, but things began to improve. We eventually found our rhythm again 14 months after the affair ended. And, as a consequence of all of our counseling, we were getting along better than ever. We had 3 of the most peaceful, easygoing months of our very brief marriage and were more optimistic than ever. We both recognize that passion is still a missing component, but we've had it before and are striving to have it again. A last landmine was located towards the conclusion of the 3 months of quiet, which was roughly a week ago. I've continued to ask questions about her narrative during our rehabilitation, and even in the past several months. I attempted to make it safe for her to be truthful. I kept my cool. I was courteous. Was there anything else? I inquired. Was there anybody else? I inquired. Perhaps as many as 100 times. Seriously. She assured me I already knew all there was to know. Nothing else occurred. That she wasn't telling the truth. That I could rely on her. She claimed to have told me everything. She said she was telling the truth. She was unwavering. She would become tearful at times. She sobbed, she became enraged. But she eventually surrendered last week and informed me that the man she was dancing with had a buddy. A female. She danced with the girl and they kissed as well. Is a dance floor kiss a deal breaker? Nope. That's not for me. That was something I could have worked with. Why not kiss a female if you're going to screw about outside of your relationship? Screw it. It's unsettling and terribly distressing, but I understand her point of view at the time. But it's the dishonesty that gets to me. Again, everyone makes errors, particularly when they are engrossed in the moment. However, hardly everyone does this, then spends 1.5 years in couples therapy while deliberately lying about their faults. I begged with her from the start to be honest with me so that we could start again and not wind up rebuilding our marriage on a foundation of falsehoods. She agreed. But then lied. I've had enough at this point. I'm ready to go. I no longer have trust in her capacity to speak the truth. It's probably worth adding that during the previous 17 months, I've caught her in a couple other less major falsehoods. So I wouldn't be shocked if there was much more to this tale. Is there any reason I should remain on Reddit? Aside from our kid and, the life we've established with. It sickens me to think that my daughter will grow up in a dysfunctional family. But it could be best to divorce now, when our child won't be old enough to remember much, if anything. And I'd be remiss if I didn't say that I've pulled my fair share of moves during the relationship. I've never cheated, but I've not always been able to provide my wife with the emotional support she required. Emotions are difficult, you guys. Nonetheless, I've always done my best. And I've always put my family first. And I've learned a lot about being a supporting spouse since we began marriage therapy, which has been quite beneficial.